$600,000 a year. Just to keep the gates locked and the mortgage current. That is the quiet price tag now sitting on the Montecito mansion that was once sold to the world as the ultimate freedom house. And right now, every broker in Santa Barbara is watching the same listing that is not even public yet. August 2026. Harry and Meghan are packing up. The kids are enrolled in British schools. The official line is they will keep the California estate while they spend an extended period back in the United Kingdom. Sources close to the Santa Barbara luxury market tell a different story. There have been rumblings. Off-market interest. Every broker wants that listing. The carrying costs alone, mortgage plus property taxes, already clear $600,000 a year before insurance, landscaping, or the security detail that never sleeps. One local broker put the potential asking price somewhere between $55 and $75 million if it ever hits the open market. A sale would still leave them with a massive profit. But that is not the story they want told. Rewind 6 years. June 2020. Fresh out of Frogmore Cottage, still glowing from the Oprah interview that was supposed to rewrite the narrative, Harry and Meghan paid $14.65 million for the 9-bedroom, 16-bathroom compound on 7.38 acres. Palm trees. Rose garden. Tennis court. Tea house. Children's playhouse. The first house they had ever owned. Meghan called it a safe haven. Harry saw the 2 palm trees on the tour and fell for it. Montecito was the victory lap. The place where the Sussex brand would finally plant roots in American soil and prove the palace had been the problem all along. It worked, for a while. Netflix. Spotify. Book deals. Lifestyle branding. The narrative was clear, they had escaped the cage and built something better. But the bills never stopped climbing. Property taxes alone have already cost them roughly $721,000 since purchase. The adjustable rate mortgage on the $9.52 million loan sits at $40,000 to $43,000 a month. Add security, grounds, insurance, and the number jumps past $650,000 a year. That is before anyone turns on a light. While the Sussexes were building their California fortress, another story was unfolding a few hills away in the same exclusive zip code. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, newly married, culturally untouchable, started looking at Montecito listings. Sources say they want a place that is theirs from day one. Not Travis's house that Taylor moved into. A shared fresh start. Private. Secluded. The exact same neighborhood Harry and Meghan spent years turning into their brand of American royalty. The contrast is almost too clean. Meghan once sent Taylor a personal handwritten letter inviting her onto the Archetypes podcast. Taylor declined through a representative. No explanation needed. Years later, when Meghan showed up at an Eras Tour show in Los Angeles, she was in the stands like any other fan. No backstage pass. No special greeting. Meanwhile, Prince William and Catherine have maintained a warm, organic relationship with Swift that never required a press release. William has sung with her. Taken the kids to her shows. Spoken publicly about hoping for a wedding invite. The Waleses never had to chase the cultural capital. It arrived on its own terms. That is the first quiet signal. Proximity is not connection. Living in the same celebrity enclave does not make you part of the same orbit. Harry and Meghan built their identity around the idea that Montecito was the permanent answer. The place where they would raise the kids free from the institution. Now the neighborhood itself is about to get a new neighbor who never needed the Sussexes' introduction, and Harry is quietly increasing his trips back across the Atlantic. The official story is still, keeping the house. The local real estate chatter says the math is getting harder every month they are not living there full time. One source put it plainly, if they plant real roots in the UK, there is no world where they keep that home. Another said it could be a few months before any listing appears, or they might give Britain a year first. Either way, the fortress is starting to look expensive. Harry's calendar tells its own story. July 2026 brought a private family meeting at Highgrove with King Charles and Queen Camilla, the first time the king had seen Archie and Lilibet in person in more than 4 years. Sources close to Harry say the wind is blowing toward more time in Britain. More of a foothold. Charity work. Family. Less courtroom drama. He is expected back in September for the Well Child Awards. The rhythm is changing. Not with a dramatic announcement. Just with flights and calendars that keep pointing east. Montecito was supposed to be the permanent chapter. The proof that walking away worked. Now the house that symbolized freedom is looking more like an expensive holding pattern while the people who left the institution start looking back at it. The costs are real. The neighborhood is shifting. And the man who once said he could not see a world where he brought his family back to the UK is doing exactly that. This is not a clean exit. It is a slow recalibration. The mansion still stands. The gates are still locked. But the story that once lived inside those walls is already moving. Let me be fair for a second. People change. Priorities shift. Kids get older. Schools matter. Security calculations evolve. A family that left in 2020 under one set of circumstances can reasonably decide in 2026 that Britain makes more sense for the next chapter. That part is human. The problem is the narrative that was sold so aggressively for 6 years. The Sussexes did not just move to California. They framed the move as liberation. The palace was the cage. The PR machine was the enemy. Montecito was the clean break and the fresh start. Every project, every interview, every carefully staged photograph reinforced the same thesis: they had escaped and built something better. When the Netflix series dropped, when the book dropped, when the podcast launched, the message was consistent. America was the answer. The institution was the problem. Now the same people are relocating the children to British schools and establishing a private residence in the UK while publicly insisting the California house stays. The official language is careful. Extended period. Private individuals. King Charles is said to be pleased at the chance to see more of the family. There is no suggestion of a return to working royal roles. The framing is deliberate. This is not a surrender. It is a strategic adjustment. But the money trail does not care about framing. 600,000 plus a year in fixed costs on a house the family will visit far less often is not a lifestyle choice. It is a ledger problem. Brokers in Santa Barbara are already circling. Off-market conversations happen before public listings for properties at this level. The same sources who say the couple plans to keep the house also note that every broker wants that listing, and that a discreet deal with an NDA is the most likely path if they decide to sell. One put the potential sale range between 55 and 65 million. Even at the lower end, that is a life-changing profit on a 14.65 million purchase. The numbers are not subtle. While Harry increases his UK footprint, the American social landscape around the Sussexes has been quietly narrowing. Hollywood did not embrace them the way the early narrative suggested. Sources in the industry have described burnt bridges, exhausted goodwill, and a production company that never quite delivered the volume or quality the deals required. The Netflix relationship cooled. The Spotify partnership ended after 1 season of the podcast. The lifestyle brand faced inventory challenges. Former staffers have their own quiet group chats. The Sussex Survivors Club is not a compliment. Into that vacuum steps Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, looking at the same neighborhood for their first marital home. The reports are consistent. They want privacy. They want something that belongs to both of them from the start. Montecito offers exactly that. It is the same secluded, high-barrier enclave the Sussexes chose for the same reasons. The difference is cultural gravity. Swift does not need to write personal letters to gain access to the rooms that matter. She already owns the rooms. Her relationship with the Waleses has been warm, low drama, and sustained over more than a decade. William has been on stage with her. He has taken the children to her concerts. He has spoken publicly about her music. The connection did not require a media campaign. It simply existed. That contrast matters because the Sussex project was always sold as cultural power as much as personal freedom. Meghan's brand was built on proximity to influence, Hollywood, activism, the modern celebrity circuit. When the biggest cultural force of the decade politely declines the invitation and later declines the wedding guest list while maintaining an easy rapport with the other side of the family, the messaging starts to fray. Proximity does not equal connection. Living in the same zip code as the people who actually move the culture does not make you one of them. Harry's travel pattern is the other half of the same picture. The July reunion at Highgrove was private. No photos. No statements beyond the palace's confirmation that it happened. Sources close to him now say he wants more of a foothold in Britain. More trips focused on charity rather than legal battles. The September Well Child Awards are already on the calendar. The language from people around him is consistent, he is going to want to be there more and more. That is not the language of a man who has fully closed the chapter on the institution he left. None of this requires a dramatic public fracture. Marriages under this level of scrutiny rarely announce their internal negotiations in real time. What is visible is the geographic and financial recalibration. The house that was the symbol of permanent American independence is becoming an expensive asset that may not survive the new travel schedule. The man who once framed Britain as unsafe for his family is increasing the frequency of his returns. The woman who built a public identity around California roots is preparing to spend an extended period on the other side of the Atlantic while a global superstar potentially moves in down the street. The palace has its own interests. King Charles has been consistent in wanting contact with his grandchildren. The July meeting delivered that. A more regular rhythm of visits serves multiple purposes: family, optics, and the quiet containment of a narrative that had been running on pure opposition for years. Harry gets the foothold he appears to want. The institution gets a version of the story that is less radioactive. Meghan gets the space to decide how much of the British chapter she is willing to absorb. The children get schools and grandparents. Everyone can claim a win if the language stays careful enough. But the underlying pressure does not disappear. The carrying costs on the Montecito estate are not theoretical. The social circle that was supposed to open every door in California has proven more selective than advertised. The cultural capital the Sussexes tried to claim has flowed more easily toward the people who never left the institution. And the man at the center of the story is spending more time looking east than west. This is the slow burn version of the same tension that has defined the past 6 years. The public thesis was permanent escape. The private reality is a series of adjustments that keep pulling the family back toward the place they left. The mansion is still standing. The official line is still keeping it. The brokers are still watching. And the calendar keeps filling with UK dates. The real reveal is not that the marriage is over. No one has said that. The paperwork has not been filed. The rings are still on. The public appearances still happen when the schedule requires them. The more accurate framing is that the project the marriage was built to support, the permanent American reinvention, is running out of runway. Montecito was never just a house. It was the physical proof of the thesis. Freedom. Independence. A new life built on their own terms. When the carrying costs climb past $650,000 a year and the family is no longer living there full-time, the symbol starts to work against the story. When the same neighborhood that was supposed to represent their exclusive circle starts attracting a couple who never needed the Sussex introduction, the exclusivity looks thinner. When Harry's own calendar begins to prioritize British charity events and private family time over California permanence, the geography of the marriage itself starts to stretch. Sources close to the couple have described internal friction over exactly this point. Harry wants more time in the UK. Meghan has been more resistant to the idea of a full return, citing the hostility she believes still waits for her. Education became the practical lever: British schools for the children, an extended stay that can be framed as temporary while the longer-term decision remains open. That is a classic high-stakes compromise. It does not require the marriage to collapse. It only requires the original plan to quietly fail. The money side sharpens the pressure. The Sussexes' income streams have not matched the early projections. The big deals produced fewer lasting hits than expected. The lifestyle brand faced inventory and reception challenges. Security costs remain high. The Montecito mortgage is an adjustable-rate loan that will reset higher in 2030. Keeping a nearly empty mansion at those numbers is not sustainable indefinitely, no matter how carefully the public language is managed. A sale, even at a conservative valuation, would generate a significant cash injection at the exact moment they are establishing a new primary base on the other side of the Atlantic. The brokers know it. The local market knows it. The couple's own statements about keeping the house do not erase the arithmetic. Taylor Swift's potential arrival in the same neighborhood is the poetic detail that makes the whole picture feel almost scripted. The woman whose personal invitation was declined, whose concert was attended as a regular fan, whose cultural dominance never required a royal connection, may now become a literal neighbor while the original residents recalibrate their lives toward Britain. Proximity without connection was always the risk of the celebrity enclave strategy. The risk is materializing in real time. Harry's reconnection with his father is the other half of the same reversal. The July Highgrove meeting was private and carefully managed. No photographs. No detailed statements. Just the fact of it. Sources now describe Harry as wanting more of a foothold, more regular contact, less of the legal and media warfare that defined the early post-Megxit years. That is a significant shift from the man who once said he could not see a world in which he brought his wife and children back to the UK. The world changed. Or the incentives did. Either way, the travel pattern is moving. None of this requires a public declaration that the marriage is finished. High-profile couples under this level of scrutiny often operate in zones of strategic ambiguity for years. Separate travel schedules. Parallel priorities. Careful language that preserves options. What is visible is the slow collapse of the original American permanence thesis. The house that was the fortress is becoming a liability. The social circle that was supposed to replace the royal one has proven more selective. The cultural capital that was supposed to flow toward them has continued to flow toward the people who stayed inside the institution. And the man who left is increasing the frequency of his returns. What happens next is still fluid. The couple could keep the Montecito property as a secondary residence for years. They could list it quietly after a year in Britain. Harry could settle into a regular rhythm of UK visits without any formal role. Meghan could maintain a stronger California presence while the children split time. The marriage could absorb the stretch or it could not. The public will only see the results after the decisions are already made. What is already clear is the poetic reversal. The mansion that was once the symbol of permanent escape is now the expensive backdrop to a chapter that no longer reads as a clean triumph. The neighborhood that was supposed to be their exclusive American sanctuary is about to welcome a couple who never needed their introduction. The man who walked away from the institution is building a quieter path back toward it. Proximity was never the same thing as belonging. Montecito was never the full replacement for the roots that were left behind. Drop your verdict in the comments. I read every one. A like genuinely helps more than you'd think. And subscribe if you want the next chapter of this story the moment it breaks. Fame at this level is never just a headline. It's a moment in time.